Good evening and welcome. My name is Dirk. Thank you for joining our live, interactive telephone town hall. We're hosting tonight's event to give Congresswoman Spanberger the chance to speak directly with you wherever you are and answer as many questions about the economic impacts of the coronavirus as possible. This evening, we'll be discussing the federal response to the coronavirus with a panel of experts, including Carl Knoblock, the Richmond District Director of the U.S. Small Business Administration, Shalanda Young, Staff Director of the House Appropriations Committee, and Megan Healy, Chief Workforce Advisor to the Governor of Virginia. Now, as I mentioned, this event is an interactive forum, and we would love to hear questions from you about this developing situation and how it's impacting you. We'll be taking as many questions as we possibly can live during this call. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your phone keypad at any time, and you will be placed in line to speak with a member of our staff. They will take down your name and where you are calling from. The next time you hear your name, you will be live on the call, and you will be able to ask your question directly. Now, if you're streaming the event on the website, you can simply type your name and question below the streaming player. Additionally, if you would like to receive updates from our office via email, please press *6 on your phone keypad, and an operator will collect your email address. We could receive a lot of questions during this event, so if we're not able to address your question, please call our district office at 804-401-4110 during normal business hours. Again, if you have any questions throughout the event, please press *3 on your keypad or type them below the streaming player. If you would like to receive updates via email from us, please press *6 on your phone keypad at any time, and an operator will collect your email address. Now, let's bring on Congresswoman Spanberger for her opening remarks. Representative, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dirk. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on tonight's telephone town hall. The discussion will be focused predominantly on small businesses and Virginia's workforce and how we're all coping during this COVID-19 crisis. We are in uncertain times, and our office has already heard from hundreds of individuals and business owners across our district about the economic challenges caused by COVID-19. And I know that you all are joining with questions, and I look forward to having the chance to answer them and to bring on the experts from the state, from the Northam administration, from Capitol Hill, the Appropriations Committee, and from the Small Business Administration to join me in answering these questions that you all have. Between the four of us, we should be able to answer all the questions that you have and ideally direct you towards the resources that are valuable. Last Friday, the President signed the bipartisan, bicameral Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act, into law. This is the third piece of legislation, bipartisan legislation, that Congress has passed to deal with the impact of COVID-19 in Central Virginia and across the country. During those negotiations, I fought to ensure that it included priorities that are important to our small businesses and our families and our individuals across our district, such as direct payments to individuals as well as strengthened assistance to small and medium-sized businesses. Notably, Virginia will also receive more than $3 billion to boost the state and local response and what we're doing here at home. As we confront this unprecedented public health and economic crisis, I will continue to push for a strong, coordinated response from the federal government. There are also steps that you all can take to keep your family safe, and so I'm grateful to everyone who is willing to abide by the social distancing requirements and the individuals who are making sacrifices in their own life to help get this public health crisis under control. I'm grateful to everyone who's continuing to make a little bit of normalcy continue in our communities, our mail carriers, our sanitation workers, our UPS and FedEx drivers, and of course our grocery clerks. And I'm so grateful to our healthcare providers and our first responders as well. And to the business owners on the line, I am appreciative. I know that you all are facing tumultuous times. I hope that we're able to answer questions, let you know what assistance is there to help you as we all as a community deal with this pandemic. So thank you all for joining this evening. And I'd like to invite at this point Dirk to begin his moderating. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Representative. Now's a great time to introduce our experts on the line. And we start off with the District Director of the SBA in Richmond, Director Knoblock. Go ahead with your opening comments, please. Hello, Director. Is your phone muted? Well, let's go ahead.
Hi there, sir. Sorry about that. I thought it was unmuted, and it wasn't.
Right.
Anyway, thank you again, Dirk and Congresswoman Spanberger, for having me on here. The one thing I want to briefly get across to everyone, we're here to support the small business as much as possible to help them through this very difficult time. And one of the things that's been very challenging is Congress has passed a lot of good programs out there, but what's happening is everybody's kind of getting muddled together, and it's creating the confusion. And I know people feel at a loss at times because they're not clear on what's going on with these different programs. And so I want to kind of highlight very quickly what those are. A little over 2 weeks ago, they did the first phase when they came out with the economic injury disaster loan. That was a loan they could actually implement very quickly because disaster has always had this loan program for hurricanes, earthquakes, and everything else. So it was something that we could literally put in place very quickly. And Congress is very good to identify that viruses could be included in that, and that opened the opportunity to use this tool. That's all we had initially until the most recent tools that came out, where now we also have the $10,000 advance that's tied to the economic injury disaster loan, where that $10,000 can be forgiven if the things are used properly. And then a lot that people are calling about right now is the Paycheck Protection Program, which is a totally separate program. And what I mean by that is anytime you're talking about economic injury disaster loan, that is purely SBA. You're working through SBA. It's SBA processors. They're processing the loans, everything. When you're going to the Paycheck Protection Program, that's where you're going to be dealing with lenders. And so that's why you sit here and sometimes it's confusing what's what. It's because they're actually two separate programs, very clear and distinct. And we try to provide guidance on making clarity. Can you pursue through both programs? Yes, you can pursue both programs and determine which one fits your needs best. So do not lose sight of that as you go forward. Is we want you to do the best deal that works for you through this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Line, we have Shalanda Young, Staff Director of the House Appropriations Committee. If you wouldn't mind giving us your opening remarks, please.
Absolutely, and I know appropriations is not a familiar term we all use, but my committee, the chairwoman is Nita Lowy. We are responsible for the vast majority of federal spending that come out of Congress. In addition to the big things you've heard about in the news about what Congress has done, including direct payments, the $1,200, including the new small business programs that you just heard about, there are also about 100 other programs that Congress provided funding for through my committee. And the reason these programs are so essential is because once you talk to the governor's office, in order to get funding out quickly, I think one of the things we wanted to make sure is these programs, some of them were things familiar to local and state governments. They could get out quickly. They weren't reinventing the wheel. There are some things like the small business program that needed some retooling for coronavirus, but there were some things that just made sense to spend money through normal channels. For example, we did more in rural development, so $25 million in distance learning and telemedicine, $100 million for something Congresswoman Spanberger has been on us to do more in the Broadband Reconnect program. We did $30 billion more in education, $13.2 billion in K through 12. We did more for assistance to producers, $9.5 billion for agriculture producers. that include specialty crops and local food systems like farmers markets. Everything from that to burn JAG grants to make sure our police officers and jail systems are not places where coronavirus easily spread. The reason for doing kind of these wraparound spending programs is to ensure that while the focus is on these bigger small business pots and the direct aid, there's also some stability in ensuring state and local governments can access known streams of funding that can get to individuals in a faster manner, so we don't have to wait for new regulations and new guidance. I'm happy to answer specific questions about specific programs, but we wanted to ensure that niche communities, some that may have not been covered by some of these larger spending items, those populations were taken care of. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. Next on the line, Megan Healy from the governor's office. Go ahead, Megan.
Great. Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Congressman Spanberger, for having me on this call. I am Megan Healy. I'm the Chief Workforce Advisor to the Governor, and so my job is to make sure that we have a skilled workforce, but I do all things workers. So that includes worker safety as well as worker rights and unemployment. And so when people don't have a job, we have to make sure that we can get the benefits out. So currently in this healthcare crisis, we're overseeing a lot of different issues, and one is the expansion of unemployment benefits to anyone who's temporarily been laid off or furloughed or has to stay home with a sick one or is quarantined. And the rules, I will tell you, change by the hour. But we're really excited about, and thanks to Congresswoman Spanberger for passing the CARES Act, because that also expands our eligibility, the length of unemployment, also what the weekly payouts are, as well as who is eligible. So now we have independent contractors, 1099 and gig workers that now can receive unemployment insurance benefits that they've never received before. So I can answer any questions on particularly the benefits. And if any question about should I apply for unemployment, I would say let's do it. You can always apply at vec.virginia.gov. And if you have any doubt, then we can go through that. So thank you for having me on this call.
Thank you very much, Ms. Healy. And again, it's a very distinguished and knowledgeable panel of experts, and they're ready to answer your questions. If you have a question, you can press *3 on your telephone to enter the question queue. Again, press *3 on your telephone keypad to ask a question. And if it's okay with you, Representative, I'd like to get to some questions.
That sounds wonderful. Let's get started.
All right. So we've got Nancy from Amelia and a question about the stimulus package. Go ahead, Nancy, with your question, please.
Thank you, Dirk. First of all, Congresswoman Spanberger, I'd like to thank you for doing these town halls over the phone so people can ask questions. I know that I live in a rural area here in Virginia, and I know folks that were unemployed before 2018 and still through 2019. So they had nothing to file as far as an income tax return with the IRS. They're on Medicaid assistance, and they also have EBT cards to assist in the grocery line, of course. What about these folks? Do they get a check from this stimulus package that Americans are supposed to receive? How is that going to work?
All right. Well, thank you for that question. And the answer is they should get, again, the recovery rebates, as they're called, are based on earnings that people receive or people earn. And so there's a threshold under which someone would be eligible to receive those payments. So adults who are not claiming income would fall within that threshold under which the income threshold under which those payments would be made available. Now, if they hadn't filed with the IRS their taxes, they would have to independently fill out additional paperwork to make clear that they, in fact, should be eligible. And then I would open it up if Dr. Healy wanted to add anything about the unemployment aspect of things, or if anyone else wants to add to that question. But we can make that available on our website, the additional paperwork that must be filled out if someone isn't, if someone hasn't filed taxes. The notable exception would be if someone is receiving Social Security benefits and not paying and not filing with the IRS. It has been confirmed that the Social Security Administration will provide that relevant information to the IRS for those payments to go out, and so our retirees do not have to file additional paperwork if they are receiving Social Security benefits.
And this is Megan. I can also answer that question. Currently, when somebody applies for unemployment insurance, we look at payroll data from employers to know what their weekly allocation is. So currently, if a person is not receiving any type of paycheck, it would be hard for us to release unemployment insurance benefits. But if they've done any side jobs or gig work, then they can show that they have done some type of work or some type of income, then you can still apply for unemployment insurance, and it's worth applying and seeing if it's possible. And again, the rules change every single day, so we're trying to get as many benefits out to people as we can.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to our next question. We got Henry in Chesterville, and he's got homeless veterans on his mind. What's your question, Henry?
Good afternoon. Good evening. My question is, as you know, we are still dealing with homeless veterans, and some of the veterans are unemployed. And part of the instruction, stay inside, but it's going to be hard to have a veteran to be safe and not get exposed by not having a place to reside. Hello, Congressman Spanberger. This is Henry Mack. Veterans have been veteran, NOW. Now is the time that we need to not only address homeless veterans, but anybody that's homeless in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Mr. Mack, thank you so much for your question. It is wonderful to hear your voice. And for all of our listeners on the line, Mr. Mack is a veteran himself and runs an incredible organization that helps and has helped our Commonwealth veterans for decades. This is a good point for me to mention that our office handles constituent service requests, and that can be related to COVID-19, that can be related to filing for some of these special provisions related to the relief packages that we've passed in Congress. But for anyone who is a veteran, anyone who has challenges with the Social Security Administration, our office can also be helpful. So we have been in close contact with the governor's office and with the Veterans Administration that at the state level to understand what's happening for our state's veterans, and also watching very closely at the federal level. Our VA hospitals are taking significant precautions because much of our veteran population is in the higher risk demographic based on age or potentially underlying health conditions. And our VA hospitals are being rather aggressive in making sure that they are taking precautions to protect their patients. And I'll open it up, Dr. Healy, if you have anything else that you'd want to add from the state's side of things about veteran-related issues.
Yes, I'm lucky enough to serve on the cabinet with our Secretary of Veterans and Homeland Security. One of the things we are looking at, the homeless that you mentioned, is definitely in these situations that we want people to stay home, right? And we're working with different groups. A lot of our hotel chains, obviously people are staying at home and not going to hotels, seeing if we can use those or dormitories because our universities are also closed, looking at how can we help house people. and there's special projects and programs I know for specifically veterans that are homeless, as well as making sure that they also get health care at all our great hospitals.
And this is Shalanda Young with the Appropriations Committee. I just want to highlight a few of the funding pieces the federal government passed as part of the CARES Act. There was almost $600 million for vulnerable veterans to support homeless veterans and support services for veterans' families. There's also $4 billion that'll be going to states and localities for the homeless population in general. And finally, I'm sure many of you know, if our hospitals are overrun, the VA medical system is a place that will jump in for the general population. So we want to ensure that our veteran hospital system is taken care of. And this bill provided almost $16 billion to ensure that our veterans population is adequately cared for, and also the general population in case our veteran healthcare system has to serve the general public in case our hospitals need additional assistance.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. As I mentioned, there are a number of people that are listening online, and we have a few questions that have come in via the online system. So I'd like to ask one of those right now. Michael wonders, there seems to be a lot of misinformation regarding how unemployment payments are changing in terms of dollar amounts. What's actually happening? And also, when can people expect to receive the stimulus check?
Thank you for asking this question. It's one of the most prevalent questions we are getting at our office. So first, in terms of unemployment benefits, in this most recent piece of legislation, the CARES Act, Congress increased the amount that an individual can receive through unemployment benefits. We upped that by $600 per week, potentially. We also lengthened the amount of time that someone can be eligible for unemployment. One of the major concerns was that for those who may have already experienced unemployment challenges already this year, or given the unknown nature of the future, what the future holds related to this pandemic, we wanted to ensure that unemployment was available for those who may need it for a longer period of time. So we've increased that by 13 weeks. As it relates to the checks that individuals will be receiving, my understanding is that the first payments will go out to those who have a bank account on file with the IRS the 13th or 14th of April, and that after that, a couple weeks later, I believe starting May 5th, checks will go out in the mail, and those checks will go out each week until all checks have gone out. And that is based on just the actual logistics. My understanding is that the IRS is able to send out 5 million checks per week, and so those checks will continue to go out week by week until every check is sent. They will be starting, as we have been briefed, with the lowest income recipients first. So those checks will presumably go out to those who are on who have the lowest income amount first, once those physical checks start going out. Would any of the other guests like to add anything to that?
Okay. Well, let's go ahead then and move on. We've got a lot of questions, but as another bit about this call, if you would like to join Congresswoman Spanberger's email list, you can press *6 on your telephone now to provide your email for that list. Again, *6 to join the Congresswoman's email list. And next, we've got a question from Charles, who's self-employed with no employees. Go ahead with your question, Charles.
Yes, I'm a self-employed worker, sole proprietor, and I don't have employees, and I want to apply for the PPP loan that opens up tomorrow. And my question is, when you apply for this loan, does it matter if the worker has in previous years filed bankruptcy, or does the person's credit have any effect on being approved for this PPP loan?
So I'm going to push that one to Carl straight away. Carl, if that's all right with you?
That's fine. Looking forward to answering it, Congresswoman. Spanberger. The first part of it, the credit will not be a piece that will be looked at. The bankruptcy part I cannot state at this point in time because the final guidelines have not come out. They're supposed to be out tomorrow morning. And because you're a sole employer, your actual program will start April 10th. You're starting a week later than the other ones that have employees. So just wanted to make you aware of that.
So, and then I'll add, Charles, if you're, as Carl mentioned from Small Business Administration, that some of those guidelines are going to be coming out tomorrow, you are welcome to call our office. The number's on the website. It's also 804-401-4110, and follow up with us tomorrow or in the coming days, and we can help get those guidelines out. Anyone on the call can also sign up for our newsletter on our website. We've been pushing out information, making it available to those on our newsletter. You can also go to our website. We have a tab for small business owners. So as the SBA guidelines become clearer and some of these questions get answered, we will also post those on our website and make that information available.
Thank you very much, Representative. Next, we've got a question from Tony, who's wondering about small business loans. Tony, go ahead with your question for the Congresswoman.
Hi, good evening, Congresswoman Spanberger, and thank you for putting this panel of experts together to help us answer our questions. I guess I want to piggyback a little bit on the last question. With regard to these economic recovery small business loans, both the EIDL and the PPP, why is it not openly being disclosed that if your individual personal credit score doesn't meet the criteria that the Small Business Association is looking for, they're denying the loans? I'm a small business owner. I own a hair salon in Henrico County, and most of the business owners in my shopping center have applied for the EIDL loan and have all been rejected because of some personal problems with their credit reports. Their personal credit reports are not relying on the credit of the business, which has maintained a good credit history. So what are we to do moving forward with this if we can't get past that point?
And I'm going to offer it over to you, Carl. Carl, again, is with the Small Business Administration, if you want to take that one.
Sure. Anyways, initially when it rolled out, it was following the criteria that were set for all disasters from years past. They followed the same criteria. When they were getting ready to roll out the Paycheck Protection Program, they said, look at these again. So as far as I know, the ones that were sent denial letters were supposed to be getting reviewed again concerning the economic injury disaster loan aspect from that point. And then the Paycheck Protection Program does not look at credit, so as part of the project for this particular program.
And Carl, for those who were initially denied for the disaster loans, should they expect that they'll be automatically reviewed, or do they have to take any additional steps? Because, and I'm going to be candid,
when we came out originally when this was rolled out, we were designed for regional disasters like hurricanes, those type of things where they hit a footprint and we can cover it. When it was identified a nationwide disaster, unfortunately, we just don't have the bandwidth at that point in time with so many applications hitting at once. And literally, it impacted efficiencies from customer service to answering phone calls, questions, everything. That's why us at the local level have been trying to respond to the questions that have been coming out from people to try to lessen the load for the national operation. With that, the operation has gone through 4 changes in 2.5 weeks when it comes. And I've told people if you applied early on, apply again with the new format that just rolled out Monday. It takes about 20 minutes to fill out that application to go through the process for reconsideration because I've seen too many people that applied early that actually somehow didn't even get recognized when they sent out the notice about the $10,000. So I'm telling people, if you got the initial denial, do not be afraid to apply again because the system has been changing literally over the past 2.5 weeks.
Thank you, Carl.
All right. Our next caller is a small business owner with contractors, and we've got Specity on the line. Go ahead with your question for the Congresswoman, please.
Hello. Thank you, Congress. I was jumping on call, and thank y'all for the opportunity to ask the question. For the forgiving grants, I am a small business owner. I'm a salon owner. I actually have contractors. I don't pay nobody as an employee. And my question is, does this forgiving grant actually apply for salons with contractors as well?
So thank you for your question. It broke up a little bit on my end, but I think that the crux of the question was that you are a small business owner, you own a salon, you have contract employees, and you're wondering if you can apply for forgivable loans. Dirk, was that the question? You heard it? Ma'am, thank you. Okay. So I'm going to open that one up to some of our panelists who would like to take that one.
I'll start it out. Yes, you're allowed to go after it. I'm assuming that you're a self-employed or independent contractor, and the others are independent contractors working with you, and they pay a fee to you for the space. And so you would be registering as an independent contractor for yourself. The others would have to actually register themselves as independent contractors if they're looking at the Paycheck Protection Program.
Thank you for that, Director. Anyone else input? All right. Then we'll move forward. We've got Mark on the line, and Mark's question is about SBA loans for churches. Go ahead with your question, please.
Thank you, Congressman Spanberger, for taking my question and putting this forum on. Our church has been closed for the last 3 Sundays. Does this program support churches, and how? Does it support them with payroll, expenses, and which loans should we apply for?
Thank you very much. So the PPP loan does apply to churches, but only to cover payroll and the cost of associated businesses that might be part of the church. And so I'll start by answering it that much, but then I'll ask Carl if he'd like to walk through what that process would look like for a church.
Okay. Thank you, Congresswoman. The thing that you've brought up is absolutely correct. It deals with the payroll, and then if you're doing special functions like a daycare or a kitchen, those type things would be covered from it. It wouldn't be covered from the donations aspect. The final guidelines for the churches are supposed to be coming out tomorrow to let us know how far that actually stretches. I can only give preliminary at this point where things stand. With that, though, you can sit there and look at both programs and to sit there, whether it's the Economic Injury Disaster Loan or the Paycheck Protection Program, looking at both of them from the standpoint which one gives you the maximum impact. And after that, then you choose which one you'd like to pursue at that point in time.
Very good. Thank you, Director. And next we've got Brenda on the line, and Brenda's got a question about retired seniors who are working part-time. Go ahead with your question. You're live with Congresswoman Spanberger, ma'am. Hello, Brenda.
Oh, I thought I'd already given it to you. For seniors who are already retired and getting Social Security, and when they work part-time to supplement that income, Are they going to be getting any help at all?
Yes, ma'am. So the question is, seniors are eligible for the recovery rebates, as we're calling them, as part of the CARES Act. So those are the direct payments of $1,200 per person that you may have heard about or read about. And in order to be able to receive those dollars, if a senior files taxes, that information would be, presuming that their part-time employment doesn't put them over the $75,000 threshold, they would be eligible to receive those payments, and those payments would be sent either direct deposit or via a check, depending upon how they receive their Social Security. And for those who do not have an income threshold that requires they file taxes, the Social Security Administration will convey their information to IRS for them to receive those funds. And that has been up in the air, so there has been some confusion about that, but the Department of Treasury put out firm guidance yesterday confirming that those who receive Social Security and are eligible for the recovery rebates will automatically receive those and do not need to file additional paperwork.
Thank you, Congresswoman. If it's okay, I'd like to jump to a web question. Steve wonders, will the CARE Act's funds be available on first-come, first-served basis?
Thanks for that question, Steve. I'm going to assume from the question that it is that he's talking particularly about the recovery rebate. So those would be the $1,200 for individuals, the $500 for children. Congress took the step to make those dollars available to every individual person, and those will be going out automatically to those who are eligible. As we mentioned in an earlier question, there may be some individuals who are not Social Security recipients and who have not filed taxes who might need to file paperwork to receive those dollars, but they will be going out automatically. And in our efforts to pass the CARES Act, it was accounted for that they would go to every eligible person, and it will not be a first come first serve because they will be going out to every person who's eligible.
Thank you very much, Congresswoman. Next, we've got Kathy on the line, and her husband is an essential person, and he's not being provided personal protective equipment. Go ahead with your question for the Congresswoman, Kathy.
Thank you. Ms. Congresswoman Spanberger. My husband is considered an essential worker, and they have actually run out of protection for the workers. And he says he has to go to work because he doesn't want to get fired, but his actual job is actually hazardous to his health if he doesn't wear his mask. He's an auto body technician, so that's my concern. What does he do now? Does he not go to work because they're not providing it?
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna speak very briefly to what our efforts have been on the federal level to get more personal protective equipment. And then I'll pass it over potentially to Megan with the governor's office if she has any comments in addition. So first and foremost, from my perspective, and it's a shared perspective of many members of Congress, it is absolutely unacceptable that we do not have the necessary quantities and supplies of personal protective equipment. Frequently in the news, we've been talking about PPE, and that's masks, it's surgical masks, it's N95 masks, it's face shields, it's gowns, and it isn't just our hospital workers who need it. As your question points out, it is those who are working throughout our communities, those who are essential employees, and in construction, in painting, in a variety of different businesses, people rely on the use of personal protective equipment. In this shortage, it's impacting everyone, and kind of most directly our medical professionals and our first responders. Among the things and the steps that I've taken directly is I have introduced a resolution into the House of Representatives urging the administration to use the Defense Production Act to ensure that we can not only produce the necessary PPE in this country, but that we can procure it and that we can create supply chains that direct the PPE to the places it needs to be. I'm also an original co-sponsor of a bill called the Medical Supply Chain Emergency Act, addressing the shortages that we have as it relates to PPE. The stories, I am so sorry to say, but the stories that I am hearing and that people are calling in and talking to our office about, the stories are very similar to yours. People cannot get the equipment that they need to protect themselves, and it is creating dire circumstances. And so I'm so sorry for your husband's circumstance, and I will ask if Dr. Healy from the governor's office would like to add anything from a state level.
Yes, thank you so much, Congresswoman Spanberger is exactly right. These are questions we get every single day around PPE in all different industries and all different jobs. Our priority is making sure that the workplace is safe, and I do, very similar to the Congresswoman, get many emails every single day that people are scared to go to work. And so what we're recommending is we are working with the federal government. We have set guidelines from OSHA, so Occupational Safety and Health Administration, about business practices that have set guidelines. We're also getting guidelines from our Department of Health about what does a safe work environment look like. And then what we're also doing is if anyone feels unsafe in their workplace, then we would hope that they would file a complaint with our Department of Labor and Industry. And they can you can do that, or your husband can do that, and you would just go on the main federal OSHA.gov, so OSHA.gov website. You scroll down the bottom, it says file complaint, and all those complaints are filed through the federal office down to our regional offices, and then we have investigators looking at workplace safety. This is a tough situation. It's very hard to enforce. But we are calling employers to making sure that if there's any support that we can do to help make their workplaces safer, we're trying.
Thank you very much, Dr. Healy. And a quick reminder to everyone listening on the call, if you would like to receive updates from us via email, please press *6 on your phone keypad at any time, and an operator will collect your email address. We do have a lot of questions, and the next one comes from Anya in Richmond, and she's wondering about restaurant employees. Go ahead, Anya, with your question.
My son is an employee for a restaurant, and he's now out of work, of course, because they don't have carry-out or pickup. He's collecting unemployment. I heard you mention that the unemployment has gone, or you have increased it to $600. Is that for the people who can originally get the most at $378?
So thank you for that question. The changes that we've made as it relates to the COVID-19 pandemic is, from a federal level, we've increased the length of time that someone can receive unemployment, and we have increased the total payment amount. In terms of your son's particular details of when he would have applied or what his process would be, I can't speak to that. But if he was a restaurant employee who unfortunately has been laid off, as so many have been because of this pandemic, then he should, I would encourage him to ensure that he is getting his unemployment benefits, and depending upon his prior tax filings, I would assume that he would also be eligible for the recovery rebate and should be receiving that. Would anyone else add anything to that?
Yes, this is Megan. I can add to that. So if your son is currently getting $378, he will get the additional $600. So that would be the $978. You can go past 100% of what, it's not based off what your salary is. You can actually get more than your salary was as a restaurant worker. And so I just want to let everyone know that we're still waiting for guidance from the Department of Labor. We've updated our employment commission systems. And so hopefully that additional $600, fingers crossed, will get out to everyone within 2 weeks. And then we can also backdate payments and retroactive pay back the $600 starting this week. So that first week might be a nice bump in the benefit check.
And Megan, would anyone have to do anything different to get that back payment, or will it be automatic?
It will be automatic, and that payment is for 4 months.
All righty. Next up, we've got Patty on the line, and Patty's wondering about students who lost their summer internships. Go ahead, Patty. You are live with Congresswoman Spanberger.
Thanks very much for your time. My daughter had obtained she does not work during the school year, but she had obtained a college internship in a major city with a big company where she was promised $960 a week and was counting on that money for next year's school expenses. But they've sent a letter today saying they're canceling internships, as I'm sure other companies are. Can they get unemployment this summer? Is there going to be any relief for students that are losing their summer jobs over this?
I'll open that up. Megan, would you like to answer that one?
Sure, yeah. So if your daughter was going to move into a place of employment and get a paycheck and now is not, then she does qualify for unemployment benefits. So make sure that she goes onto the VEC website. We'd love for everyone to apply online. We do have a phone center, which there's a little bit of a wait if you call. So make sure she goes on the vec.virginia.gov website and can apply.
All right. Next up, from Locust Grove, we've got Brenda on the line, who's a small business owner. Go ahead with your question, Brenda.
My question is, we run a small business that's seasonal, a boat business, and we have been still in business. We have a fenced lot that we have locked it to the public, but still trying to prep boats and get them back and do our sales. And after hearing about the unemployment benefits, I had half of my employees walk out last week and quit their job. And I'm wondering, with this loan for the payroll reimbursement, how will that affect me if they have already quit? And if I have others walk off to get the unemployment, how does it affect me as far as getting the loan to reimburse what I have left in the payroll, because I won't have the same number of employees starting out that I would have had if they aren't walking off the job, and all these people eligible for unemployment?
Brenda, thank you for that question. I'm going to pass it over to Carl from Small Business Administration to answer.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Like I said, and I'm going to go with the Paycheck Protection Program first. With that, you would apply, and you're going to say, okay, I basically had this many employees, let's just say 20, and you've given the opportunity to bring those 20 back, but they pretty much can have said they're not going to come back. This is one of the questions we have out, and that's one of the questions we hope tomorrow will come out in guidance, because this has been a concern that's come up from more than one business owner because of the benefits with unemployment for certain industries, and that's what we're hoping for clarification. We haven't gotten the final details yet with it, but the fact is you still can pursue and apply from your standpoint that maybe you only have, instead of 20, you only have 5, and that's all you're going to go forward with at that thing, because that's what you're going to maintain. And so you're not going to be able to bring them all back, but you have 5 that you're still maintaining, and that's what you'll go forward with through the process as you apply through this. But hopefully, like I said, tomorrow we'll get further guidance on it when it talks about those employees that basically are deciding to pursue unemployment versus coming back to work.
And Carl, this is Shalanda with the Appropriations Committee. One thing the Small Business Committee has pointed out, those don't need to be the same employees. Is that correct?
Yes,
they
ma'am.
just look at, you will just look at the number.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you very much for that answer. Next up, another question from the online community. And we've got Steve, and he wonders something about the PPP. Says interest rate for unforgiven portion of a loan will be 0.5% fixed rate. Can you clarify what this means? Is the interest rate 0.5%?
Thank you, Steve, for that question. And Carl, I'll pass it over to you very quickly, if you don't mind.
Yes. Thank you, Congresswoman. Actually, it changed today. It's actually 1%. And that means that if you don't comply with the loan, you will have to pay the loan back at 1% interest and within a 2-year time frame. But as long as you comply with the requirement, the loan will be forgiven.
I'm glad you asked that question. And I think that some of the answers for those on the line listening, the guidelines and the implementation of some of what Congress passed is still being hammered out. So it is very, very important that we receive these questions so that we can make sure we're getting clear guidance out. And Carl, I'm grateful you're on the phone today to be able to give us a up-to-date current status of these things and answers to the questions. Thank you.
All right, our next question comes from Dr. Stephanie, wondering about unemployment for self-employed. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for doing this town hall. I really appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing. So you've touched on this a little bit, but I'm self-employed. I have 2 businesses, no employees, and I'm questioning whether I should be applying for PPP or the disaster loan relief or unemployment or all 3. Do I apply for all 3 but only pick one? Or and on kind of a side question on the unemployment, when is that going to be available to us? Right now, when I've gone online to try to look into it, it looks like it's not set up for the self-employed yet.
Let's start that question with Megan, and then maybe Carl, if you want to add on the loan question, you can add.
Great. So anyone who is self-employed or independent contractors, we have not received guidance from Department of Labor. It's supposed to be to us hopefully by tomorrow, or supposed to be early today, about what that looks like. When we get that guidance from Department of Labor, we've already done a lot of the coding in the system, then we can hit those buttons. So hopefully we'll be changing our application for unemployment insurance benefits next week. Also, we do have some folks that have already put their independent contractor or self-employed, and they were denied claims, and so we also put those to the side, and hopefully that we can go through their application again and then give them benefits. So hold tight. I wish we could have done it, but we're still waiting for the federal government to make sure that we're in line with their guidance before we hit those buttons for you to apply.
To continue on with that, the big thing that told people that have brought that question up, it's at the end of the day, it's which program maximizes. You know how much you're going to get from unemployment. And if you don't have to pay rent or utilities, that may be the preferred route. But if you have rent and utilities for a location, the way you have to look at going in direction of the PPP. If you're confident that you're going to be back to work within 8 weeks, PPP may be the better choice. If it looks like from what you've calculated, that it may be 16 weeks, unemployment may be the better route you have to look at. That's why we tell everyone, look at each one and plan out your scenario where you're forecasting when you feel that things are going to come back to the norm in the even though it's very unpredictable, you can kind of see how things are going based on what's happened in other countries and kind of map it out that way.
Thank you very much, Director Knoblock. Next, we've got Craig on the line, and Craig's wondering about the stimulus checks. Go ahead with your question for Congresswoman, please.
Yes, I'm a retired federal employee, and what happened is my 2018 taxes, I did not qualify, but my 2019 taxes, since I was retired, I did qualify, but I did not submit my 2019 income taxes until a couple of days after the law was passed. So my question is, do I need to do anything, or do I need to fill out that form, or now that I submitted my 2019 a couple of days later, is that good enough?
Thank you for that question. I believe, and I'm going to ask Shalanda to double check me on this, but I believe that if you have filed your 2019 tax returns, that the IRS will use those as the base for how and whether they send off those recovery rebate dollars to you. And I believe that if it is filed now with the IRS when those checks or direct deposits start going out next week, as long as your income puts you eligible, that you will be in the system. Shalanda, would you have any flags on that, or would you agree with that statement?
I would agree with that. If 2019 is in, if it wasn't, they would have defaulted to 2018, but they will use your 2019 as the guide for, and hopefully you have direct deposit, and you'll be in the front running of that. So, yes, they'll use this 2019.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Young. Next up, we've got Melissa from Culpeper. She owns a small business. Go ahead with your question, please, Melissa.
Hi. Just want to thank you all for all the good communication we've been having throughout this process. We don't envy y'all's position at all. My husband and I own a bowling center. We have about a dozen employees who depend on us for their income. We have had to lay all of them off, including us, because we're a non-essential business and therefore had to shutter. The question is, looking at the information we're obtaining about the PPP, it says you have to pay your employees, but we can't pay our employees because they're not working. Or do we cut them paychecks even though they're not working? It's a little confusing, or maybe I'm just misunderstanding it. And we still, of course, have to pay our rent and utilities, and I understand that PPP helps with that as well, but it's just a little confusing, and my accountant's giving me information, but I'm still just not clear.
Yes. Well, Melissa, thank you for your question, and I'm so sorry for the circumstances that you and your husband and your employees are facing. Carl, would you be able to answer that question for Melissa?
Yes, ma'am. Anyway, the fact that one of the things that says stipulation is that they're basically hired back before June 30th. So we know the issue here in Virginia is to June 10th. That's part of the equation. The other part of the equation is we're waiting for guidance because I think when people were looking at this, they weren't looking at these mandates that came down to kind of say, okay, these businesses are basically closed, but yet we want them to bring the workforce back, and they want to, but they can't because of the virus. So that's something we're hoping with tomorrow's guidance that will gives us some clear indicator, are we able to do something? Other things that could potentially be looked at is activities that you could do in the bowling alley that typically you don't get to do because of being busy, painting projects, those type things, just to kind of keep the workforce moving so they're active at that point later on. Those are other possible options. But like I said, that key point of doors being shuttered and not being allowed to be open. We're hoping the guidance tomorrow will give a little clearer indication how can businesses that want to do something but can't because of literally a government mandate. So that part I can't answer at this point in time.
Thank you very much, Carl. And Congresswoman, I'm being told that we need to look at wrapping up this call, so we've got time for just a few more questions. And the next question comes from Patty, and Patty has filed for unemployment. Go ahead with your question, please, Patty.
Yeah, hi, another restaurant worker here. I filed for the unemployment on March 18th. It says that I should receive a PIN in the mail, and then I can file a claim after that. I haven't received anything in the mail. I know they're backed up, but at what point should it be late, or is there any kind of other telephone number or other office that you can give me advice on I can contact?
Sure. Megan, would you like to take that question?
Sure. Yeah, so when you get your PIN in the mail, you're supposed to get them within a week, so it sounds like you're beyond that week. And that's when you go into your portal and then do your direct deposit and start getting your benefits. And this is for anyone on the call. If you could just email my staff, it's workforce@governor.virginia.gov. Just email me and we can send it over to the Employment Commission. You can call them as well, but I will tell you the phone. It's a long wait on the calls. So if you just do that, and I can maybe connect you to someone at VEC, that would be great, because you should have gotten in a week, because most of our benefits are getting out within a week and a half. Is kind of our goal. So thank you for asking that question.
Megan, could you repeat that email address?
Sure. It's workforce@governor.virginia.gov, which is GOV.
And Virginia is all spelled out. It's not the abbreviation?
Yes. Governor and Virginia all spelled out. Very easy to misspell either of those words.
Thank you.
All right. Next question is coming from Eric in Orange. So, Eric, what is your question for the Congresswoman?
Yes. I'm married and have filed my taxes, and I have a 17-year-old child that I claimed as a dependent. The way that I read the CARES Act, the stimulus payments will be for each adult and dependent under 17. Do we get anything for a 17-year-old?
So, Eric, and for anybody on the line, you are correct in your reading of it. Currently, under the law that we passed that was signed into law, a 17-year-old dependent is not eligible. However, we have introduced, and I'm a co-sponsor of this legislation, a bill that would provide the CARES Act benefits, so those child-dependent benefits, for any dependent child up through the age of 24. That is legislation we are trying to get passed to rectify what many of us assess to be a bit of a loophole that is impacting families. But currently, the current status is you are correct for your dependent. You would not receive that $500 for him. Shalanda, do you have anything you'd want to add there?
Unfortunately, you're correct. It's 16 and younger for the extra $500 for children.
Thank you. And looks like our last question of the evening. It's a chiropractor. We've got Dr. Taylor Myers. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yes. Thank you, Congresswoman Spanberger and the rest of the panel. Congresswoman Spanberger, you came out and visited our office in Blackstone, Virginia. We are looking to get PPE equipment, personal protective equipment, for our staff, so that way we can help the ERs and take in anybody that is not specifically going there for COVID-19. However, the big companies in and around the U.S., Zorro, Uline, are refusing to ship anything to us because we are technically not a hospital. What do we need to do on that realm?
Dr. Myers, it's good to hear your voice. It's good to connect with you. Unfortunately, right now, I would say there is not a lot that can be done proactively. I have been on call after call with folks at the state level, with hospital systems, with nursing homes, and long-term care facilities. There is a shortage across the board. So even though part of the challenge here is that your practice isn't kind of at the top of the list to get PPE, even for some of the larger hospital systems that handle kind of emergent care and are the first stop for COVID-19, potential COVID-19 patients, there are shortages there. I would say this comes back to why it is that we need a centralized and organized and frankly unified response and the ability to ensure not only the production and procurement of all necessary PPE, but also the ability to ensure that it goes where it needs to go, and that those who are participating actively in this fight against this virus have the personal protective equipment that they need. The challenge is, and Megan and I were on a call earlier today, and we heard that in fact at times the state is trying to find PPE, hospital systems are trying to find PPE, the federal government and states are competing with each other, hospital systems and the state are competing with each other. The lack of a unified effort in this is really, really hurting our first responders and hurting people who need it. So the unfortunate answer is there is not one particular path that you can take to get the PPE that your office would need. I'm grateful for your willingness to try and help and get patients kind of out of the hospital system to free up space for the COVID-19 patients. But at this time, it is really a challenge to get the supplies that we need in any real specified fashion. So that is not a happy answer to your question, Dr. Myers, but it is the challenge that we are currently facing as a community, as a Commonwealth, and frankly as the country.
Thank you very much, Representative. As I mentioned, we do need to bring this call to a close. So do you have any closing remarks you'd like to make?
I would like to thank everyone for their participation in this call tonight. Thank you for listening. To the guests on the phone, thank you for bringing your expertise from the Appropriations Committee on Capitol Hill, from the Small Business Administration, and from Governor Northam's workforce team. Thank you for participating. To the constituents on the line, thank you for allowing me the honor of serving you, particularly during this deeply painful time for our country and our community. I would again mention that our office is dedicated to serving the people of the 7th District, and I welcome you to call our office with questions. Our phone numbers are on the website, which is spanberger.house.gov. That's our congressional website. Our office in Henrico is 804-401-4110. Please be in touch with us if we can be of help, if you have any questions. Please go to our website as well. We have a tab for coronavirus-related issues. We have information for small businesses, for individuals, and we're continuing to add to that. I think one of the things that you've heard on the call tonight is that the implementation of these programs, the 3 bills that we've passed, are an ongoing endeavor. And so we'll continue to post information on our website, on social media, to keep people informed. And it is always our goal to serve the people of the 7th. So please, if you have questions, if you have problems or concerns, please be in touch. And thank you for spending this time with us tonight. It is a deeply challenging time for people across this country, and certainly right here in Virginia. And I'm grateful for your participation. I hope everyone is able to stay safe, and I just want you all to know that our office is here to help whenever and however we can. So I wish you all a good evening, and I wish you all we will get through this as a community. And so thank you for your participation tonight.
So well-deserved and hearty thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us for this important telephone town hall with Congresswoman Spanberger and our experts. We appreciate the opportunity to answer your questions. But again, if we were not able to get to your question this evening, you can call our district office at 804-401-4110 during normal business hours. Or you can go on the web to spanberger.house.gov. We will host more of these events in the future to keep you informed on what Congresswoman Spanberger is working on in Central Virginia, available resources in the 7th District, and other important updates. Thank you again. We hope you stay healthy and safe, and have a pleasant evening.